I had a seasonal job at Target last year. Every year, they bring in new people during the seasonal times to help with all the chaos of this pending season. It's pretty standard, just about everywhere was doing this. It just happened by chance that I was doing it at Target. I think it's actually funny. I don't think I've ever actually been to Target until that job. Anyway, it was actually a night shift position. I would come in and start working around 4 a.m. That was one of the crucial times to get stuff stocked up for the big shopping rush that day. Now, the way we did it was we would get a shipment off of a truck and all the supplies would go into the back. We did that as fast as possible so the truck driver could get on with his next stop. Those guys were always in a rush. Once we got the stuff in the back, it was up to our team to get it all organized and stocked. That was all fine and dandy, pretty standard procedure. Now, there was normally a good number of people who worked this shift with me, normally between 4 and 5 of us, with a manager somewhere else doing whatever managers do. But here was the situation. The layout of the store was a little weird. We had so much room in the warehouse area for all the supplies, but sometimes it would be too much. Like, drastically overflowing. We had this other room to put some of the stuff we just couldn't fit anywhere else. It was a weird situation because that overflow room was not very big. I think it used to be someone's office. I don't know what happened there, and I don't really care either. That was the job. It was a true nightmare to organize the stuff in that overflow room. It was a really tight working space because it would normally be 2 people in there doing that, and the rest of the team would be outside. This room was kind of secluded as well. It was just kind of out of the way and did not make sense to be a storage spot. Again, not my decision, just what I was told to do. It was one of these early mornings that I had to work in that overflow room with a guy I didn't know that well. He never said very much, and he looked a little sketchy. I'd actually seen him walk off the premises a few times after getting a text message, and that was really weird. It was never for very long either. It was like he got a text message and went outside to take a smoke break or something. No one ever said anything, though, so he just continued to do it. Honestly, none of us really cared that much. I did mention we came in at 4 in the morning, right? Well, this one morning that we were working in the overflow room, something a little strange happened. He got a text message and went outside like usual. I asked him where he was going, and he just said he'll be right back. He left before I could say anything else. But I noticed he dropped something as he went out. It fell on the floor, and I went over to pick it up. I couldn't tell you what exactly it was, but it looked like a clear Ziploc bag of herbs. Obviously, they probably were not herbs at all. But, being really tired and overworked, I assumed he was a gardener and he was carrying his herbs around. I know how stupid it sounds. I have a lot of friends that are really into gardening, and I guess I just assumed the best case scenario. When he came back, he seemed like he was in a rush. He was looking around frantically. I told him he dropped his herbs. I pointed to them on a table in the room. That was when he got really aggressive with me. He asked me if I thought it was funny. And that was when it dawned on me that he wasn't walking around with lavender in his pocket all day. It also dawned on me that he was probably selling while he was working this shift. That would explain why he would randomly go outside every once in a while. He threatened to kill me if I said anything to anyone. And I was honestly scared to death. I didn't know what to do. Looking back, I probably should have told my manager and called the police. But I never really had to deal with anyone that was a criminal or whatever. Of course, I didn't say anything to anyone. But now, every time that I saw him, he gave me a weird look. Let's call this fellow David. That wasn't his real name, but it'll work. Over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I started to observe David a little bit more closely. I paid a lot more attention to what he was doing, what he was looking at, and how he was behaving. And after that time, I realized a few things about him. Firstly, he was definitely a drug user himself. I couldn't tell you what, but my guess is that it was something pretty hardcore. He would talk to himself like a crazy guy once in a while, and other times, he would just completely zone out like he was on a different planet. The other thing that I noticed about him was that he was very unstable. Sometimes, he would get really upset over very minor stuff. There was one time he screamed at the top of his lungs because his shoe was untied, and other ridiculous things like that. Now, while all of this was going on, I was still living my life. I still went for runs at the local park, and I made YouTube videos in my free time. I tried to forget about the whole situation with David. That was, until I saw David at the park where I always run. He was sitting at a bench, staring at me dead on. I stopped mid-step. That was the scariest realization ever because it meant that he was stalking me, and I didn't know what his intentions were. I didn't know how long he'd been doing it or why, I just knew that I was in danger. I kept running and played it off like I didn't notice him. But oh boy, how could I not? Then, there was one morning where it all went down. I showed up a little earlier than usual. I was always an early bird, I just hated being late. I was there about an hour before my shift started, must have been about 3 or so. I was chilling in the parking lot listening to a podcast on my phone. And that was when I noticed someone pull up behind me. I parked kind of far away from the store to not take up parking for the customers throughout the day. I just thought it was unusual for someone to park so close to me when there were spots everywhere else. My heart sank. The person behind me turned on their brights. And that was when I knew it was David. My fight or flight kicked in. I turned my car off and sprinted to the store as fast as I possibly could. I knew the employee entrance would be open, and I would be able to get to safety there. David started driving after me. Like, trying to run me over. He probably would have gotten me too. But there was the spot where it was a line of trees in the parking lot. I ran on the other side of the trees when I noticed that he was driving and he couldn't really do anything after that. I got inside and screamed that I needed help. Surprisingly enough, my manager was there. I explained the situation to her, and we called the police. She locked the employee entrance, and we waited until the cops gave us the okay. Obviously, David has left. The cops couldn't find him either. He wasn't at his apartment. Apparently, he gave the wrong address when he applied to work there. I guess they don't check the seasonal workers very thoroughly at Target. Hopefully, they do now. I used to be in a really bad place. I had struggled with mental health issues from the time I was in middle school, mostly depression and anxiety, you know, the usual culprits. I had been working in a Starbucks as a barista. The Starbucks was actually inside of a Target. You would think it would be bad, but it was pretty nice. Anyway, I dated this one guy who may have been an actual sociopath. He had some serious problems. I haven't spoken to him in a few years now, and I don't plan on reaching out anytime soon. Trust me, you'll see why in just a minute. He actually found me out back one day. I was behind the store. I said I was going on a break, but I really just needed to go and cry for a little while. I was feeling really overwhelmed and depressed. I just didn't have anything to look forward to in my life at that time. I remember looking up at him. I could barely see him through the tears in my eyes. He started talking to me, and he really comforted me. I told him that I was suicidal and was severely depressed. At the time, I thought he was just a really sympathetic person, willing to help someone down on their luck. But I now know the truth. He saw a struggling person who would be easy to abuse. And that's exactly what he did to me. I vividly remember him wiping my tears away, right off of my cheek. I was so touched. His name was Mike. He really got me. It wasn't long before we had exchanged numbers and started dating. It was really great at first. That honeymoon part of a relationship was so great. But the honeymoon phase doesn't last forever. And when I started to see him for who he really was, I got scared. I noticed that he had a mask. And I don't mean like a costume. He would pretend to be someone that he wasn't. He literally faked a personality. There were a few times that I was at his apartment and he would just start acting really weird. It was like his true self came out. And it was horrifying. He was so mean that I honestly can't even put it into words. He really did enjoy making me suffer. I remember him telling me that I wasn't good enough and I need to lose weight, read more, work harder, and a million other things. He told me everyone in my life thought I was pathetic. He said so many things like that, and I honestly couldn't stand it. It was like he found that negative voice in the back of my head and put it on speaker. The worst I ever felt about myself was when I was with him. And I totally let it all happen because no matter how mean he ever was to me, a part of me secretly believed that he would be the only person to ever be with me. That I wasn't worth anyone better than him. Yeah, it was a really dark time. It wasn't too long until our relationship that he convinced me to move in with him. He actually had a nice place, but it was kind of far from my job and my parents. Because of the move, I had to drive almost a half hour one way to Starbucks. Of course, he didn't care. You never did about things like that. He gradually isolated me from everyone in my life. He did it one by one. He started with some of my friends. And I might mention that I wasn't very close to them to begin with. But any contact with anyone other than him was a threat. So, he would tell me that so-and-so person that I speak to once in a while actually hates me. But sometimes he was more abrasive about it. There was one time when he grabbed my phone right out of my hand and blocked my coworker's phone number. He was really threatening about it too. I knew that if I ever unblocked him, he would do something to me. Things started escalating to a point that even I recognized that they were out of control. I knew if things continued down this path, he was going to kill me or I was going to kill myself. It really was that bad. I won't bore you with every little horrible story, but he broke my stuff, cheated on me. He even joked about the fact he cheated on me. Said I should be happy he's with me at all when there are so many other great women out there. And all kinds of things like that. The day I realized I had to get out, I was really important. I didn't really have anywhere to go, though. Mike basically forced me to break off contact with everyone. And he regularly checked my phone to make sure I wasn't speaking with someone who I wasn't supposed to. I reached out to my mom while I was at work. Borrowed one of my coworkers' phones and gave her a call. It was really nice to hear her voice. I explained as much of the situation as I could, and she said she completely understood and that she was more than happy to let me move back home. That was a really touching moment for me. I walked out that night because Mike was out. I was able to pack my stuff up and leave without ever having to say anything. He probably would have gotten me to stay somehow. Said the right words. Made me feel like everything was going to be okay. The way he always did. He did not appreciate the fact that I was gone. He was mad. He started showing up at my job a few times a week. He would always try to talk to me, convince me that things could get better. He said that he would change and be nicer to me. But I knew that he was just lying to me. I knew he just wanted me back under his thumb. I ignored everything he said. And that seemed to work for a little while. It didn't stop him. There was no way in hell that I was going with him again. This is where things get crazy though. He really wanted me back. He showed up at my work one day. I actually happened to be on a break. I was walking around Target and just killing time honestly. As I was walking, I saw him looking through some of the glass near the Starbucks section of the store. My heart dropped. He looked mad. Like, really worked up and violent kind of mad. I stopped and just stood there for a moment. I didn't know what to do. He turned around and saw me. We made eye contact. And the only thing I could think to do was run. My body spun around faster than I ever had before. I ran as fast as I could in the opposite direction. And I knew that he was chasing me. It was actually weird how I got out of the situation. There is an employee door that you need a key card to get through. The Starbucks employees had them too, for some reason. I think there was a glitch in the system. Either way, I was far away enough from him that I got through it and closed the door behind me. One of the Target employees asked me if I was okay. As bad as the situation was, I honestly didn't want to make a scene. I told him I was fine and just needed a minute to take a break. I sat in there for about 15 minutes and left. Mike was gone. That was the last time I saw him. I'm not sure why he hasn't contacted me since. I'm just glad he hasn't though. He was responsible for the worst part of my life. And honestly, I'm lucky to have gotten out of that situation alive. Wherever he is, I just hope he isn't doing the same thing to another poor girl out there. This story happened to me and my friend. Her name was Jenny. We are in our mid-30s, and we're both still single. We're roommates, and we both have a really good time. We went to the same college together and have been best friends ever since we met. We have good-paying jobs and live pretty exciting lives. We actually live in Philadelphia and absolutely love it here. So, Jenny and I have saved a lot of money over our lives because we don't have kids and we also didn't have boyfriends at the time. And before you even think it, no, we are not lesbians. We're just very close friends who live our lives the way we want and not the way society tells us. Anyway, we love shopping. We work hard so we can buy nice stuff whenever we want. That's kind of how it goes, right? We would always go on Saturday night. That was our secret shopping night. But after the coronavirus, we were much more reluctant to go out. We have been working from home and we do everything we can to stay safe and stay indoors. As you might imagine, it has been extremely difficult. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Philadelphia. Our jobs went remote and we felt guilty every time we left the house. It's been a rough little while. We got really excited when things started opening back up. We hoped and prayed that life would continue as normal. We were both stuck in this tiny apartment and couldn't do anything other than watch TV or read the whole time. It was honestly kind of miserable. But when we officially got out of lockdown, we gave it a few weeks before we went anywhere still. We may have been bored to death, but we also did not want to get COVID. There wasn't a massive spike in cases or anything like that, so we figured that it would be okay to go out as long as we wore masks. We went to all the stores that we used to go to. We bought some clothes, perfume, shoes, and other girly things like that. It was honestly super fun. There was nothing like being able to go out and live again and have a good time. Sure, we were a little bit worried about getting sick, but we thought that it would be fine as long as we wore our masks. And at once. To this day, neither of us has gotten COVID. But for me and Jenny, the good times left just as quickly as they had come. We were in Target, checking out some of the men's sports gear. Jenny's brother had been trying to impress a girl at the gym he goes to, and we were trying to help him out. It was going to be a little something for his birthday. This guy walked up to me and tried flirting with me. He was a little abrasive about it too. I mean, here I was standing with my friend looking at clothes, and this guy just invites himself into our little thing right here. It just rubbed me the wrong way. And this wouldn't be the only thing that would rub me the wrong way. He kept asking me questions about where I worked and stuff like that. He was trying to act like a cool guy. And I thought it was weird because he had to have been in his mid-20s. I don't mean to insult myself, but I definitely look my age. I had at least a decade on him. And it was obvious when you looked at us. Finally, he asked me for my phone number. And I said that I didn't have one. He acted really irritated. He gave me a mean look. And then he said that he saw me using my phone earlier. And this is where things got out of control. He reached into my right pocket and pulled my phone out. He started yelling and asking me, "What is this?" I told him to give me my phone back or I was going to call the police. He was obviously mentally ill or something. He finally threw my phone onto the floor, and I picked it up. He really pissed me off, and I had half a mind to just kick him in the groin. But I didn't want to have to fight him if I didn't have to. After all, he probably could have really hurt me if he wanted to. I did my best to keep calm, and so did Jenny. He walked away, and we thought that was that. We continued browsing through some of the stuff on the racks looking for something that Jenny's brother would like. I found a really nice pair of sweatpants that I thought would make him look really good when Jenny touched me on the shoulder. She told me to look over there. She motioned her head in the direction. I looked over, and it was the same creepy guy staring at us from the other side of the store. His hand was in his pants, and it just looked like the freakiest thing ever. But the way he was standing, it wasn't obvious that his hand was in his pants, if that makes any sense. His arm was outside of his jacket, and you could only see where his arm was going if you saw the front of him. And we were the only people that could see him. I don't know what he was doing down there, but it wasn't anything that I had ever seen before. By the way his arm and body were moving, it looked more like he was squeezing one of those stress balls than anything else. I know that might sound funny, but when you and your best friend are both women and stand there watching this, it honestly can really freak you out. I looked over at Jenny, and she was so scared that she was crying. That was when I finally had enough sense to speak to one of the managers. I called over for one of the employees and told them what the guy was doing. Of course, when I did, he stopped what he was doing and left the store. I went against my better judgment and didn't call the police at that point. Again, not a very good idea and something I really regret. I've learned my lesson though, and I won't make that mistake again. We gave it another 45 minutes or an hour before we ended up leaving Target. We decided to just kill some time and keep looking for more stuff to get. We finally shut off the bad mood that we were in and got ready to check out. The guy that was working there told us he was really sorry about that and that he would walk us to our car if we wanted. We really appreciated that and took him up on his offer. There was a decently sized parking lot that was shared between a couple of stores on this road. When Jenny and I stepped outside of Target, we immediately noticed that the guy was still out there. He started walking in our direction once we left the store. He was probably standing there since the time he had left the store earlier. Thankfully, he darted off when he saw the Target employee with us. He was a bigger guy and looked like he worked out a lot. He told us he would call the cops and let them know about this guy after we left. We thanked him a lot. I even handed him a $50 tip just for being such a good guy about the whole situation. After all, he didn't get paid to watch out for our safety. And I really appreciated that. Jenny and I drove home and got there safely. That was the end of our story with that creepy guy. I'm really appreciative of that Target employee and other people like him. Sometimes, the only thing standing between you and a predator is a selfless stranger looking out for your safety.